The Trump team carried out a significant, well-planned, and coherent attack. But as we all know, Trump can never manage to let an event speak for itself.
If you read the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution, it doesn't say you can't serve as president for more than 2 terms. It says you can't be elected as president for more than 2 terms. Is it not possible, this idea of like, well, J.D. Vance becomes the nominee, Trump's the VP, and then J.D. Vance wins, steps down, and Trump's become I mean, is that not possible?
It is possible. And in fact, it's consistent with the language of the 22nd Amendment, and law professors have written about this previously, long before the Trump era. It is the text of the amendment is written in a manner that would permit the scenario, however bizarre and however unseemly, that you've described.
And we are now in a world where
I don't discount anything anymore.
Well, but also just like the idea that MAGA needs this one person to thrive, as opposed to any number of worthy successors to the MAGA throne, including J.D. Vance, just seems...
It seems sad and pathetic. And I mean, the fact that we're talking about this is actually quite remarkable, but it isn't. I mean, and I agree with you. Donald Trump, you have to, even when he says something that seems on its face absurd, there usually is some kernel of thought in his mind that he's looking for a way for it to happen, making his desires happen. And he's a man who will not give up power willingly, as we saw 4 years ago. He will try, if he is in the physical shape or mental shape to do this in 3 years, he's going to try to do it.
I mean, you're a longtime national security professional. You were worked in the Homeland Security Department. I mean, first of all, the conversation where, someone said to him, they aren't building a bomb, they're not an imminent threat. And he said, who said that? Your director of national intelligence.
Yeah.
Just said that. So, again, ignoring his own intelligence professionals, then forcing them to twist it or cherry pick or get in line, right? Or she'd be out. And now here we are in the find out portion of F around, right?
Yes.
As a national security, are you terrified? I mean, it seems to me almost zero chance they're not going to retaliate somehow, right? Either our forces over there are here in the homeland. I mean, who knows, right? Is Strait of Hormuz?
Will, certainly. Yes. There is no doubt that there will be retaliation. And one of the things about Iran is that it may not actually happen overnight.
Yeah.
They play the long game and they're strategic about it. And so it could be at any moment. I mean, they could close the strait, which they're threatening to do, and that's going to cause disruptions, and that's going to cause oil prices and all of that. But there's just a number of things they could do. They could conduct cyber attacks in retaliation. It could come in a number of ways, or proxies on military bases overseas, which is why DOD, the Department of Defense, has evacuated families, because they know that there is an enormous risk here. And we don't know what the sleeper cells are, the situation is here domestically. So there's just a combination of threats here that we have chosen to involve ourselves into the middle of a conflict that was happening there. And look, I get it. I'm getting the notes and I'm hearing from some national security people. They're like, well, Iran is weak right now. This is a good opportunity to strike and take this out and whatever. And I'm like, fine, I can see the valid argument for that. But the issue is the aftermath of where the planning is. What happens next? Do we actually think that this is going to make a difference?
Yeah.
What does the region think?
Well,
because we certainly just went in.
What J.D. Vance said is so ridiculous. We're not at war with Iran. We're at war with their nuclear program. I said, can you imagine if Iran dropped a bunch of bombs on Los Alamos? Yeah, the U.S. would go, oh, yeah, you're not at war with us. It's just, that little section of New Mexico, so that's fine. I mean, who are they kidding? We are absolutely at war with Iran now. I mean, and as you said I spent most of my career focused on the Middle East before focusing on the homeland. FYI, I could sit here and regurgitate conservative talking points on Iran. I won't. National security experts have debated moves like this for years, especially when there's no clear plan for what comes next. He never thinks about what comes next, does he?
No, and it's the shiny object or the squirrel that crosses in front of them. So even if there's a plan that they've developed, and I'm guaranteeing you they're probably writing that right now, what are we going to do? It doesn't matter, because he is going to do something that derails it over and over again, because that is his personality. He just can't lead with discipline. And in this situation, it's going to require a disciplined sort of approach of what's happening here as we prepare for what comes next.
And
I still see it.
We've never had a president, I think, like this, where when people go, what's Trump's thinking? He doesn't think. He thinks what's good for him, what will get his poll numbers up, what will distract from, the disaster of the economy, his poll numbers, the no kings route. Who knows what he's distracting from? But you said it best. You said Trump dismantled diplomacy, gutted the national security apparatus, pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal, decisions that helped destabilize the regions. Now it's all bravado, and this attack on Iran is likely to lead to a protracted conflict. This is provocation through chaos. This isn't a win. I keep saying it. We can't say it enough. We had a deal. Obama had a deal. It was working, right? And this is, all of this may end up with getting the same effing deal that Obama had, right?
Yeah, and that's the important thing there, Stephanie, is that deal was working. Iran was abiding by the agreement. That is the important thing to remind people of. And the United States chose to pull out of it under the leadership of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And it was a big mistake. And we are now dealing with the consequences and an escalation of our choosing. Right? It's the chaos that Donald Trump creates. It's a crisis of his own making, just like we've seen domestically as well.
When you think, Olivia, how many people could die because of his inherent racism and his inherent insane jealousy of Barack Obama? I mean, and by the way, I was on vacation for a week, and these news cycles, you tweeted, although if I wasn't here, it didn't happen.
Exactly.
If I didn't say it didn't happen yet. But you said a politically motivated act of domestic terrorism shook Minnesota while we're talking about sleeper cells, right? And all of us this weekend, while 5 million Americans marched, that was more than 5. I think it was 12 million, but okay. Marched to reject authoritarianism and said no kings. U.S. Senator Mike Lee showed us what happens when cruelty replaces conscience in public office. This isn't red or blue anymore, is it, Olivia? It is just decency. What are some of the signs at the rally? Radicalized by basic decency. I mean, the fact that they just, as a party, have lost their soul, that he's making a joke out of a Democratic, person being assassinated in their own home, right?
Yeah, and there's no empathy. There's no actual human compassion. I would say just a human actual sensibility of what is happening here. And I think that this is only going to get worse because we have a group of people who everything is politics for them. Everything is an opportunity to take a punch at the other side or punch the Democrats. And really, in that moment of political violence that happened in Minnesota, it should have been every single person across the board condemning it and saying, no, there's no room for violence here. Like, we've got to get this back.
And while they're
we
talking
cannot continue down this path.
And while they're talking about Iranian sleeper cells, Olivia, they're, chasing guys through the parking lot at Home Depot. You know what I mean? And 7% of our terrorism here is right-wing extremists, like the guy in Minnesota. And so, here we are, right? And the fact that Trump took shots at Governor Walz after this. Why would I call him?
Yeah, that was
He's
ridiculous.
incompetent. He's terrible. He's wacky. I mean, he engaged in the exact same rhetoric that caused the shootings in the first place, right?
Yeah, and he'll continue to do so. I expect no leadership from Donald Trump at the helm on that issue. He will continue to perpetuate it. He has. That's what led to shootings at Pittsburgh and El Paso, a number of places where it's the great replacement theory. It's the dynamics that these individuals choose to continue to perpetuate and the way they talk and the rhetoric. And it leads to actual real world consequences and violence. And Donald Trump isn't going to change, right? So the question is, will anyone stand up and lead in the Republican Party and actually change the trajectory of what is happening here in terms of violence in our country? Because it's certainly not the 22-year-old at the Department of Homeland Security right now who is in charge of domestic extremism affairs and now has an entire Iran threat on their hands, where we have a very inexperienced person who's never worked any of these issues running the office.